I'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask the city clerk to read the statement of compliance and give meetings act into the record, please.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with notice provided to the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Trenton Times, individuals on the listserv, department heads, and the city engineer. The meeting agenda provides for action items known at the time of publication and is subject to change. This meeting is being streamed live and recorded using the Zoom meeting platform. Roll call.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kaminsky.
Here.
Councilman Lyde.
Here.
Councilman Stegman.
Here.
Council President Lambert.
Here.
She's here. She's online. She might just be muted. Mayor No.
Here. All
Here.
right. I would also like to welcome Yolanta Madiars this evening. She'll be sitting in for Bill Oakland this evening's meeting. So welcome. Last Friday, I had occasion to be in the New York City Public Library, and up on the wall was a quote that I thought was worth sharing, something by E.B. White, and it was for an essay he wrote in the New Yorker back on July 3rd, 1943, and the essay was called "The Meaning of Democracy." It is the feeling of privacy in the voting booth, the feeling of communion in the libraries, the feeling of vitality everywhere. Democracy is a letter to the editor. Democracy is the score at the beginning of the ninth. It is an idea which hasn't been disproved yet, a song the words of which have not gone bad. On that note, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing. Moment of silence in honor of the 4th of July and the 249th birthday. With the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, from the stand, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Keeping with the approval of the minutes, the following sets of minutes from May 1st, 2025, closed session minutes, May 15th meeting minutes, May 15th closed session minutes, and the June 5th work session minutes. If they're really on the council, have a chance to review them, and are there any comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept minutes. Is there a second? Second. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Council President, are you?
I'm unmuted. Am I muted?
There was just a minute.
For Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry, there we go.
Were you able to?
What is that?
I was wondering if you wanted to vote to approve the minutes.
Oh, yes.
It seems like we can hear you well now, so please let us know if you have any questions or concerns or if you can't hear us, okay? Moving on to the administrative reports, I hope everybody had a chance to look at everything. Yep. Okay, any questions about administrative reports? Nope. All right, I'll make a motion to accept the administrative reports. May I have a second, please? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Before we open it up to public participation, I'm going to offer a few updates. Sometimes I think it's better to offer updates at the beginning of the meeting, maybe rather than at the end. But first I wanted to give the floor to Councilwoman Pianisky to just kind of talk about her work on Conant Hill. Sure.
Since, Sean is not here, but, since the last meeting, I've been working with Sean and Karen Atwood and the folks up there on getting the test together and determining like what holes we had, if we had any need for funding or financing, and what we, hey, look, everyone up there has done a great job. We have Excel there, they have an Excel spreadsheet of everybody who's been tested and folks who are going to be tested by DEP. We actually were out last week when DEP came out to follow up with some folks that they had given notices to, but they hadn't talked to. We had a Spanish-speaking interpreter come to help us with 2 of the households. So, and which has been great. We actually, I went up and down to Mandy's a couple of times to get it all straightened out. And now we're both in contact with DEP in terms of when they're testing, you know, any holes that they have. So we kind of have a little bit of a network going. I know the department was coming out today to do some testing and tomorrow, and then we're gonna follow up again on any problems, who's outstanding. There's a few tests that we were able to shift over people who wanted to test right away to some of the free tests that were offered by Jeff. I'm not sure like how that has worked out, but DEP has their list, they've been testing, and now, I mean, essentially they're kind of, as they get a positive test, they move another like 500 feet and then they do the next test. So essentially now they're kind of more deeper into West Amber, right? That's moving up 179 as they get positive tests. So we're awaiting some of their results. So, you know, it's still, you know, we're still in the testing phase, but it's been great. And I know that some of the other neighbors that we've working on their repair issues, but a lot of these things are up. So I think we pretty much have a handle on, I don't want to ever say never on, you know, what's needed and what's going on, but right now we're testing still. And I think, and the department's been very good about getting everybody, as many people on the public testing rules as they can. And I think our next 2 is we're like branching out a little to West Amwell. Now that we're in West Amwell also, but Karen and I were talking to Zach Rich about what, you know, what their needs, you know, and look, they're waiting because it just keeps moving there. And but in terms of resources, if you know, he's taking care of that on the West Amwell end.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Right. Yesterday or 2 days ago, we finally were able to dispose of a couple of properties that we've been trying to sell for about 3 years now. A long, complicated history, but it's sheriff sale, and we sold 113 Swan Street for just over $20,000, a small plot on the $20,100. So that's so you're going up the hill on Swan Street, the wooded section on the right. Small parcel on 179 sold for $5,100. And the third parcel, which is down at 310 North Union Street, did not sell, but the city is now able to contact the contiguous owners to see if either of those property owners would like to purchase the property through direct negotiations with the city. So I'm pleased to finally have some movement on that. And thank you to Cindy and Bill, who's not here, who's really had to really work through a lot of process to make this happen. So a couple of updates for those who may not have read Nashville Matters this morning. In terms of Cavallo Park, there's a little bit more testing that needs to happen. Waste site characterization tests, which effectively is a test to gauge the level of hazardous material that may be in the contaminated soil, which then affects kind of where the soil goes and how it needs to be disposed of. that we weren't gonna be able to get that kind of turned around in time for the July meeting, so hopefully by the August meeting, we will have been able to get those results and get the contract, and then award the contract. Keep everybody, keep everybody up to date on that as things happen. I also noted that Village Apartments, we've had more communication with the developers. They were scheduled to meet with the DEP this week, to consider some flood hazard controls for the property. DEP pushed back that meeting until July, so, it is all in the works. They are looking at a kind reconstruction on the site that's 44 units. So, as we have more information about that, I will update the community as well. Church Street, still waiting to hear back from the DOT on these last minor adjustments that they requested. And in regards to the North Franklin Street Water Main Replacement Project, I'm meeting with Veolia next week to understand kind of what the delay is on their end. So I don't have more information about that specific to the delay in that project. Should be able to go into make an announcement next week in Land Legal Matters about what the timeline is expected to be for that. So just as a reminder, they're going to be replacing the water main on North Franklin Street from Swan about halfway up the hill, after which the city has a project to repave all of South Franklin from Highland down to Swan. And then lastly, there was a question that came in just about and this is something that's on the consent agenda, so I just wanted to kind of get out there in front of it. There was a question about, a property owner's ability to expand a plenary retail construction license. And that is just something that would always need to be approved by the city council. So if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to answer that, or we can direct it over to laptop. And I think that was all I wanted to just sort of update everybody on before we went into public comment, which we will now do. So as we go into public comment, we remind everybody that we have a 3-minute limit. Then people let you know when you have 30 seconds. We ask you to state your name and address for the record, and that time is uninterrupted for your comments or questions.
Jeff Fiddle, 33 Wilson Street. I saw that about 2 weeks ago, Kay Hovnanian filed a motion to exclude the letters from DEP and the other in the report from the court case in front of the judge. So we were able to get them in from the judge, and I was wondering what the city is doing as far as either trying to challenge their ability to do that, since the public comment, the company, the session was over from, the what do you call it, that comment period, you know what I mean? And so are we challenging that, or is the judge going to just dismiss it, or do we have any idea what's going on with that?
Is that all you wanted to say?
I have one other question.
Okay, if you could go with your second question.
Okay, my second question is, has there been any contact to the city from Finkel's or any professionals for Finkel's or to either the planning board or any of the building inspector, construction court officials or land use administrator, planner, trying to find out where they are, what they're doing, so.
Okay, I'll answer that question first because it's easy. No, we've had zero contact. There's been nothing submitted. There's been no outreach to the construction office, literally zero. And then just on the first point, I did talk to the attorneys kind of handling this matter with KCOB. And they did, at the judge's request, submit all of the documentation from the DEP and all the letters from the residents. Following the letter that came from KCOB, I had a conversation with them, and they felt as though because the judge had asked for the documentation, that was the sign that the judge fully understood that he did want to review all the documentation, and they thought that was probably going to be counterproductive to actually, go back to the court and say, Judge, did you get this? We wanted to say something about this other letter. So I think that their strategy was that it wasn't necessary because the judge had requested the material, and their expectation was that the judge is going to review it. It is submitted from the state, from residents. So
That's it. It just looked like they wanted to challenge it.
And I don't know if they actually filed a motion. I can look at that later. They did file a letter.
They filed a letter.
Rejected it. And Kelly Grant contacted me because I was at the meeting just to, see what I recalled about, and I distinctly remember the judge asked her to not only share it with all parties, but to upload it, and so. There's a written record of that, so I'm not really sure what GitHub is doing because it's recorded, they could have just checked the transcript, so.
Yeah, our attorneys filed everything on June 9th.
Yeah.
Paul Stevens, 3940. I have a question about one of the bonds that's in the continuing, in the resolution and the consent resolution about retiring things, I guess is the right way to say it. In particular, the one about Swan Creek, I'm curious about. It looks like there's, if I read it correctly, there might be $6,000 left. I was under the impression that that money was all spent, $6,000 out of the 30 some odd. Might that not seem like a lot, but still, there's plenty of stuff in Swan Creek that even just getting $6,000 spent on moving some of the big pieces of concrete that have come down. Anything we can do, so it would be helpful.
Okay, thanks. So Cindy, this was a very old project. This is many years before Ida. So this was a project, I think, that was not completed. Is that right, Cindy?
I believe so.
This is before Ida.
Yeah, it's not related to Ida. This goes back a decade or more.
So we were doing work on the Swan Creek floodgates. And I think that might be that one.
Well, even if it's still part of Swan Creek, $6,000, if there's not something.
But I think the useful purpose differs from construction to, I think that was for consultations.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Good evening, John Minchett, 99 Quarry Street, Maryville. I always do that because people don't know where I'm from. Couple things. First of all, I think it's very important that it be understood.
John, pull the mic towards you, please, so all of us can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. The limit of 3 minutes, I believe, constitutes under the Constitution a violation, First Amendment, it's an abridgment, and such that will impact the 3 minute limit in West End is 15, at the no more. I think it could cover the action for taking since that limitation would stop performance. And I say no more, I think it's up to go. I don't think any of us want to deal with in today's political environment. It is the appointees, but that's it. Secondly, the forest we had BFAS, we had it in our bill. There's two, Karen, limited of means, ladies, who have not in their role tested. And if there's anything that can be done to them, if you would contact me, we can go over there. It's important we take care of our neighbors. Now, in the last 3 years, we have had lasting taking place, site plan work done from my house for a very, we had no application. They have no legal right to do anything of what they're doing, and they're doing it. And as I look up right now, you got, as I said before, 45 years, I stood on my mailbox, and I would look up in the morning, and I can tell you right now, the amount of work that's been done up there constitutes site plan without an application, site plan review, and illegal because it's outside the limit, and there are no records of any matters that are in file with the state of New Jersey. So I would welcome folks to come up, take a look at what is taking place, the things that's reasonable. And I remember Mr. Jeff saying that 4.5 acres falls back 4 million gallons of water. And, am I right on that? Million gallons. 4.5 acres, a million, and that will end up down here. And then lastly, I have a gentleman who I talked about before, who more than 5 years ago went to your predecessor and asked to be considered, it appears to be, didn't use the right language, to be used as a builder's remedy. Has 3.5 acres. Is, he also, has been because I live on the landing wall, one of the rules must be considered with affordable housing. And he would therefore, be able to, take advantage of that, he doesn't want to. And his wife wanted to build for the outpatient. And they have affordable Mount Laurel housing on, they own, the person to whom they're talking with also has Mount Laurel housing on their property. And they want to see it eventually be pushed in the right direction, that they have a tiny power station. I think we get great publicity and it would be built by the Amish. So I'd like to put that on the record. And then lastly, at times we forget, and it's very easy to do so, that we either stand together, or as Ben Franklin said, we either come together or come alone. And right now we're in a situation where we're applying to meet certain levels of developers. But those developers have a legal way to full the nice use of the land. Otherwise, it becomes a combination without compensation. So I think we have to tread lightly, but we make sure that the water we follow, because years ago, people, a little gentleman told me he wanted me to run numbers as a kid after my father died. And he told me I could go to jail. I said, well, pieces of paper with numbers on it, and he gave me the best legal advice I ever had. The law's the law. And we call it the rule of law, but he said it pretty cat. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like serious reconsideration. We don't need to be creating our own bad publicity. And where to go with that? Now, lastly, Governor Murphy has $30 million. A lot of it could be our money for the revolution. We have the most important structure in the history of New Jersey, because Morgan can do all they want, but we have receipts that Washington was there. And we have it on record in primary source that so Sam, come on, get the hint. This is a gold mine. We want to be able to be treated that the most money that's spent in Florida, 70% of the money is heritage tourism. And I believe when you look at heritage tourism, I went to the symposium back in '96 at the Omni, and they said it's going to be the biggest money maker going. They leave their green and they keep us clean. So way to go. I thank you very much for your time. And I made it through. Did I miss anything?
Sandy Hanna, 249 South Branson. I'd like to put a formal request in that on the city's right of way along South Franklin, there are a few trees there. Now, last year, some trees were taken down by the town. There are 4 there that managed to pull my wire out of my building, drop limbs on the wires, make it so my neighbor across the street has no electric either, damage the whatever that thing is up there on the telephone pole. Anyway, and I get yelled at by the neighbors saying that it is my responsibility for the trees. It is not. You've already taken action to remove the 4, and I would love to have you do that. It's on the right of way, it's on our tax map. The 2 of us have no children, we have no city water, we have no city sewage. I have to carry my garbage up and over, so basically I don't get anything but thank you for putting some salt and occasionally plant. So if there's any way that we can address those trees, I would be grateful, and that is my request, thank you.
Thanks. I'm just gonna speak to that. So, the city has removed a few trees in the right of way, and we did that really erroneously. And that was my inexperience, that allowed them to go forward. And I spoke to the residents up on South Franklin Street when we did that. Residents are responsible for, their property up to, up through the right of way, whether it's a maintenance or a tree issue. The city's not prepared, I think, financially to deal with every tree that's on someone's property that happens to also be in the right of way. So we did cut down a number of trees, and I did speak to the city attorney about this. It's not something that I think that we would typically do again. Because there's just too much fit, right? And we spent $30,000 in the last a year, in the last 3 years, just removing dead trees in city parks and city properties. We could be talking about tens of thousands of dollars removing trees on various properties in the right of way. So, I have to admit that was technically a mistake, that was my fault, a couple of years ago. We did remove, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 trees, on several properties, in your neighborhood, but I don't see it as something that we can continue to do or that we would do normally. So, that has to be my response to that. Do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, the right of way is.
The right of way, the trees in the right of way actually belong to the residents, because generally, when you own property, you own to the middle of the road. So the trees are yours. However, if these trees are in the right of way, and if they threaten any of your electrical wires that belong to the electrical utility, you can call your electrical utility and let them know. They may want to come around and take a look and maybe cut down the trees. I know JCP&L has a tree cutting program. PSE&G may have one as well. Who's your electric service provider? It's JCP&L. JCP&L does have a tree mitigation program. They are investing a good deal more money in the coming years in order to mitigate these trees that are in the right of way. So I suggest that you call JCP&L if you have any trees that are overhanging your electric wires.
Yeah, they have come out on occasion. I have called them on behalf of a couple of residents on Cottage Hill at various points, and they make the determination. So unfortunately, and I think some of your neighbors may have spoken to them, but because you're in a tough spot up there. There's only 3 or 4 houses here at the end of the electrical line. They have to prioritize kind of where their work is done. So, that's just something to keep in mind when you call them as well. They're more likely to remove a dead tree whose fall will affect 100 customers than 3 customers.
Very true.
Yeah. Other members of the public wish to speak?
Good evening, John Towns, 14 Hancock. Sorry I got here a little late. Did we hear anything back from the owners of Village Apartments in regards to what they're offering towards our fair share housing?
Yes, you did get here a little bit late. I did talk about that already. So, they're 44 units with 9 units of affordable housing.
And that's also tied in with the property across the street, the farm. We're putting housing there as well.
It's not tied into it, but we do have a signed memorandum of understanding with Habitat for Humanity for 6 units on that.
So then we're meeting our 3rd round at that point then?
Well, as I said before, the 3rd round is we've had verbal confirmation from Fair Share that they will apply those 6 units for the Habitat project to the 5 police station units. So we still have to go back to the court and file a request to amend the settlement, which has not been done yet because of all the 4th round activity that's been tying up Fair Share in the courts. But talk to the city, the affordable housing attorney, and that's something that we'll be doing very soon.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak? And I don't know, how many people do we have online tonight? Have a motion to close public comment period, please. Move. Want to have a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Right, resolutions, this is the consent agenda. The resolutions on the consent agenda are considered routine, shall be enacted by one motion. Should any member of the city council seek separate discussion of any item, that item shall be removed and discussed separately. Does anyone on the council have anything, they would like to ask?
I just had that one question, because we're, renewing, we're on the boathouse. The license is only for the boathouse and Revolution.
Correct. Yeah, if they wish to expand their footprint with their plenary license, they will have to come back to the council for approval. Any other questions from the council? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve the resolutions listed in the consent agenda numbers 100/2025 through 115/2025. I'll second it. All in favor, please say aye.
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 You count president? That's the end of the consent agenda. Moving on to resolution number 116/2025. This is the resolution of the city of Lander,ville and county of Hunterdon endorsing the fourth down housing plan element and fair share plan as adopted by the planning board of the city of Lander,ville on June 4th, 2025. So here we are, after 6 months of lots of work. I do want to take a minute to thank everybody, especially here on the council and also particularly on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. The work that the committee has done has just been very, very helpful. And we met last night in this room and had further discussion about the evolution of that committee. We're going to take the summer. A number of us are going to be kind of communicating one-on-one to kind of find, kind of next steps for that committee. I think it's a great help and it has the possibility to assist the planning board and the zoning board and work through zoning ordinances and the master plan. So we're going to be looking at a lot of that over the course of the summer. We expect to meet up again in September with a refined or beginning conversations about a refined mission and possibly incorporation under an ordinance with the support of the city council. So thank you to everybody who participated, and thank you to the public who showed up to those meetings and participated, and all the property owners, the 42 of them that we contacted about participating or partnering with the city. So all good stuff. Are there any questions from the council about this?
I would just say just a comment about the committee that we've had. I think it was a great idea to start the Affordable Housing Committee. We've done some great work with that, and there's been so many questions about updating the master plan, and to me, it just seems like that's the logical conclusion to use this committee to help with that. And as we look at Lambertville, especially Bridge Street, and the entrance into town from Stockton, I think that we just need to re-examine our master plan so we can decide how we want the city to look in the future. So I look forward to hopefully doing that with the committee.
Great, thanks. And before I ask for a motion or a further conversation, I did want to clear something up. So there's been some conversation floating around about a 15% set aside on rental units. That was something that was mentioned in one of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meetings by one of our professionals. I took a little bit of a dive today. I actually went into the code. And the 15%, that the confusion I think arises from the fact that a 15% set aside component of the overlay ordinances in the 2020 amended settlement agreement. So on the overlays that were in that amended agreement call for 15% set aside if the properties are developed as rentals. The city code requires a 20% set aside. So I just wanted to clarify that because I have misspoken and a number of other people have as well. And I'm sorry for any confusion and apologies for not getting that clarified a little bit sooner. Any other questions or thoughts about
Which specific properties?
all three overlays, all three overlays. Yeah, the Bird, the Crowboy, and the Train Crack Factory. Okay. Well, then I would entertain a motion to endorse the housing element fair share plan as adopted by the planning board.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Everybody take a look at the bills list. We pay the bills this month?
Okay.
Okay, that sounds like a motion, which I'll second.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor? Thanks, Ben. I mean, Council President. All in favor of paying the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinances, first reading, this is ordinance number 15-2025. It's an ordinance to amend Granville City Code 2014, Chapter 7, handicap parking, to include a space in front of 67 York Street. This is something that we do routinely, and the city is going to begin to complete a review of all the handicap parking spaces. Council President and I talked about this the other day. I think it's a good idea to really understand where all the spaces are and make sure that that they're still being used by the intended kind of recipients of those. And this will allow us to study kind of what we currently have and to prepare a plan moving forward for how best to handle requests of this nature. As the council president pointed out, and as I'm happy to point out as well, you know, we now have a block where we're going to have probably 3 or 4 handicap spaces. And obviously we're going to, you know, move forward, I think, with those requests, but, you know, we're also mindful of the impact it has on other neighbors as well. So, Council President, did you want to add anything to that, or?
Mayor, I just think we need to be mindful of trying to figure out a way to manage these requests and, I guess place them in such a way where they're not so scattershot. And if it makes sense to, I don't know, you know, try to make sure that we're not creating a parking issue for non-handicapped, you know, drivers, whether they be residents or visitors. You know, I think we just have to be mindful. I think the easiest route is to have maybe every few years assess, you know, go through the list and see which ones are still being actively used. And if, you know, there are some that aren't being used, then we could take that away. You know, I don't think we should do anything drastic. I just think we need to have some sort of eye toward not letting it get out of control in a particular area or overall. I think we just have to be, you know, just have to be careful and think it through.
Thank you. Cindy, do you think it's something that we could accomplish over the summer to do an inventory? Is that?
Yeah, because Lester does have a list
He has a list.
of active ones, and unfortunately, when somebody passes away or moves, the neighbors call right away. And both Lindsay and I do see, in most cases, you know, through the EDRS, the death records. So we do see that. But that being said, there could be a few scattered that, you know, we've missed. So I think we can go through this, work with Lester over this summer and get his list and revisit them just to make sure it's accurate. And then maybe we can try and get this on mapping in some way so that we can see where they all are.
Yeah, we just had one like a while ago taken out on Clinton Street, you know, and it was very helpful to, you know, because the folks had moved and, you know, eventually come out and spray it. You know, it is a good thing. And it just, you know, sometimes too, there's old like loading zone signs up and things that, you know, people are kind of vigilant on, but sometimes they talk amongst themselves and we don't get the reports. It would be good if we had downtime just to check them out. Sure. I agree with that.
Okay, then I'm going to request that we do an inventory over the summer, that you just make a note, this September voting session, that we just have a formal review, if that's okay? Thank you. So that still leaves us with any other questions or comments. If none, then I would ask for a motion to introduce ordinance number 15-2025 on first reading with second reading, public hearing scheduled for July 17th.
So I think.
So moved.
We are net too, that we can add to the list.
Okay.
It's not being used anymore.
All
I
right,
move, I made the motion.
thank you, Council President.
Second,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Give me a second to get some notes here. The next is ordinance number 16-2025. This ordinance of the city of Lambertville, County of Hunter, and state of New Jersey seeks to adopt a Holden Farm redevelopment plan pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. So this is the redevelopment plan for Holden Park. The plan would be subject to a public hearing at the planning board on July 2nd, and then come back to the governing body for a July 17th second reading and public hearing. As everybody knows, we've owned now the property for 4 years, and we're ready to move forward on several fronts. And this redevelopment plan allows us to do that. It allows us effectively to do a couple things at the moment. One, it allows us to begin the process formally of dedicating the property for purposes of the Habitat for Humanity houses. And then secondly, it will allow us to move forward with negotiations in the sale of the farm market to Fisherman's Mark. And just in terms of process, how this would work, I just said that this would be introduced tonight. We'll go to the planning board July 2nd. It'll come back to this body on July 17th. After which the engineers and the architects for Fisherman's Mark would prepare preliminary and final site plan submission to the planning board. And once the council approves the redevelopment plan, then the Fisherman's Mark will go back for final site plan to the planning board for a public hearing. After which the planning board, assuming they would approve the preliminary and final site plan, once that's done, the city can move forward with closing on the purchase and sale with Fisherman's Mark. So that's kind of how the process will be laid out over the next several months. We're looking forward to moving through the process and hoping that all goes very smoothly. I'm in regular contact with Fisherman's Mark and the city attorney and everybody that I need to be in terms of making sure it all goes smoothly on both fronts for both the Habitat project and for this project. So it's taken a long time. There's a lot of moving parts to this. We've talked about this. We still have a number of moving parts in terms of the road dedication and doing anchors and yada, 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 but we're working through it all. And tonight I think to introduce this ordinance. Is there questions from council about it?
yeah, no, I just want to say that it's great. I know it's taken a long time that we're able to use the property for affordable housing, as well as have Fisherman's Mark purchase it and do some things. I mean, when you look at the redevelopment plan, it's a interesting lesson about buying open space. So I hope next time we buy open space, we buy open space. So, I think while we're on the topic, we'll make a motion to move this, is just an update on where we are with Green Acres when you raised it, because it does seem like it's a complicated process getting the money back from Green Acres, and you have to file so much paperwork, and this is in the exclusion zone, so it doesn't affect our reimbursement, but our reimbursement is, I think, still chugging along. So.
It does, and I'll flesh that out a little bit. So we've completed everything that we need to complete for Green Acres except one thing. There's always seems like there's one thing that somebody forgot along the way. And this one thing was the dedication of a public access to the park, right? So so that is the road that goes up through the park up to the log cabin. Once we began to consider the property for expanded use with the Habitat for Humanity project, we now needed to incorporate that we needed to dedicate that as a city roadway. We began the paperwork, we did all the engineering, all the surveying, and then found out that it's a major application with the DOT because of the exit off Route 29. So the engineers have been working on the packet for it's a major access, I think is what it's called. And so we are working through that. As soon as we have that with the DOT, and as soon as we can, adopt an ordinance to dedicate the roadway, that would be the last thing, and I've been in contact with Green Acres, they know this is the last thing. I would love to get this done this year,
I would love to. We have a great commissioner at DOT right now, great chief of staff, and I'm sure he would be happy to see it get done during his tenure.
yes.
When we're doing that, is there any way to talk to them about pedestrian access to the park there? Because it's very complicated.
So I had an email about this morning, so there have been several conversations, and I have had a conversation, I haven't enforced with DHE. I reached out to them, it was a year and a half ago maybe, about a crosswalk there, and they said no. Because of the site limitations on the north end of 29. And I just had a second volunteer from Fisherman's Mark read to me today about this. And my plan is that once we're in place with Fisherman's Mark, with Fisherman's Mark to write, this request directly to the commission.
With the pedestrian plan that DOT offered to help us with along that road and Bridge Street, they will look at that. So we need to pass the resolution that Ed said, so we can start with the process, because we preliminarily had talked about other pedestrian walkways in different places, maybe one at York and one at Ely Field, and that had been an issue as well. And they'll look at it, because if we start this process, we'll look at this as a whole.
So
So that would be a great thing to do in part to get there, because it's beyond Fisherman's Mark really, since it is a state highway though.
yeah, and we'll start that in July. So, and I thank you for your work on getting us sort of set up for that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was lose where I
I
am.
have a motion.
Oh, we have a motion.
Second.
I'll second. All right, all in favor, in the introduced ordinance number 16, 2025 on first reading, aye.
Aye.
Jim? Council President, did you vote? Did Council President vote?
I'm sorry. What was,
We've had a motion in a second to introduce the.
Oh. You need a vote or a second?
Need a vote from you. Or I would like a vote from you.
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, if you're able to vote on this, we already have a motion in a second.
Oh, I vote yes. Sorry, I was sneezing.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Would you reach out, so we are going to talk to Stephanie, so if you will let, I think Stephanie's next up, so Stephanie, if you will unmute yourself. The next ordinance is ordinance number 17-2025. This is an ordinance granting municipal consent for the operation of the cable television system franchise within the city of Lambertville, County of Hunterdon, New Jersey to Comcast of Southeastern Pennsylvania LLC hereafter. So this is it's an ordinance that is time to renew the contract with Comcast for a 10-year period of time. It's been reviewed by the Broadband Cable and Television Advisory Committee, and I'd like to thank in particular the members of that committee, Stephanie Brand and Dave Bird, Sean Ellis, and John Weber. This ordinance took a long time to come. It requires a lot of different steps, and I'd like to offer an opportunity to Stephanie Brand, who's with us via Zoom, to speak to a couple minutes about the ordinance, why it's important, and what the process was. Stephanie, if you could, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. As the mayor mentioned, about 15 years ago, the town granted a franchise to Comcast that included a 10-year renewal, as long as Comcast was in compliance with the ordinance. The Broadband Cable and Telephone Committee conducted a review over the last year to see if they had in fact complied. We conducted hearings, we talked to a bunch of agencies, including the schools and fire and police, the library. We also got complaints from the BPU and reviewed all of that and issued an ascertainment report, which I think you all have received. In fact, I know you all have received. It was last October. The ascertainment report found that Comcast had complied for the most part, but that some items had either not gotten done or had lapsed because of changing technology, and they had become obsolete. The changes in the ordinance reflect the findings of the ascertainment report and the recommendations in that report. Some obligations are taken away because they've been viewed as obsolete. Others have been modified. An example is that one of the requirements in the original ordinance was that they build a link between the Justice Complex and City Hall. That never got built. But now that obligation is being taken out, but they're being required to provide basic internet to both of those buildings. And also an updated modem and service to the library. And there's one other item in the ordinance that came out of our process, particularly the public comments, and that is that when excuse me, Comcast closed their local office in 2016, the town agreed to that. It was approved by the BPU. But what has occurred since, as the world has changed, is that there's now nowhere in town where people can return equipment. If you don't have a car, the nearest store is in Flemington. And if you don't have a car, it would be very difficult to return the equipment there. Comcast does say that you can return it at any UPS store, but for us, that is in New Hope. It's in a different state. So one of the things that the committee recommended that's in this ordinance is that they provide either a drop box or some arrangement with a local business so that Lambertville residents who don't have access to a car can return equipment within the town. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We'll have public comment section, the next meeting, but I think we should be able to.
Yeah, thanks, Steph, and Dave, that's a great list of gets from Comcast. We're certainly lucky to have you on leading the committee, yeah. That's all good stuff for us, so thank you.
Yeah, and the ascertainment report, how many pages was it, Stephanie? It was a lot, you wrote it all, so thank you very much. Because yeah,
The members of the committee.
I have a comment, just a question. First, Stephanie, thank you for the update, and thank you to you and the team for all the hard work on this. It's kind of a thankless job because everybody loves to hate the cable company. So, but I was wondering, were other providers considered, or was that kind of out of scope? I should have asked that question last year, but it just occurred to me.
Yeah, well, it's kind of out of scope because of this 10-year, what they're calling an automatic renewal.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, Comcast didn't even engage with us at all because we certainly informed them of everything we were doing. We sent them the ascertainment report, but their view is it's automatic. So, we will see what their reaction is to this.
Thank you.
Right, especially Comcast is the only provider that we can use. I mean, they're the only ones around. So, I mean, Verizon never came in with the fiber optic, and so, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, glass half full or empty, we have Comcast as our provider, right? Is that?
Yeah, well, they're the only wired option. There are wireless options like Verizon's 5G or T-Mobile's 5G.
And start, I got the contacts, and I had to go to Trent to return the equipment.
Okay, see?
And they lost it and Trent chart.
I think that the Comcast is facing challenges from getting away from wire and just, going at a different path. I do have work and I get rid of Comp.
Okay, very about that part of the meeting. We're talking about what we're doing related to the Comcast element.
Love it.
All right. Yes.
They really is cool.
Yeah.
Step it up for us. So thank you, Comcast.
And thank you, yes, Stephanie and Dave. Sean and John. So, let's
Sean
move
and John.
on to a motion, please, to introduce ordinance number 17-2025 on first reading.
So
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing and second reading will be July 17th for this ordinance. Okay, moving on to the second reading of some ordinances. First, second reading is ordinance number 11-2025. Of an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code, Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 7-7.2, Stop intersection. This will add a four-way stop on Rosemont Avenue and Delaware Road intersection. Talked about this repeatedly. There's been some, people have been concerned about the speed with which, commuters are passing through using map in the mornings. From, avoiding 29 and the lights going up through the neighborhood and going out Jefferson. So, in talking with, quite a few of the local residents up there, we determined that this would be a great idea. Just one more stop sign, right where it needs to be, and slow everybody down and make sure that children are safe and the neighbors all live with about their neighborhood and the safety of the streets. So I'm going to open this up to public comment. This is a public hearing for this ordinance. If there's anybody here that'd like to speak to it or ask any questions, to be the moment. Is there anyone online who'd like to speak to this? All right. I have a motion to close the public comment period on this ordinance, please.
Second,
Okay. Aye. All in
aye.
favor? Aye, thank you. Now, unless there are any further comments from the council, I would entertain a motion to grant final approval to ordinance 11-2025.
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, motion carried. Next is ordinance number 12-2025, an ordinance in the city of Lambertville to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014, Article 7, Department of Administration 2-7.2, Division of Municipal Operations, letter E, purchasing, number 2, purchase by quotation. So this is just really, I consider this about a housekeeping matter. This brings us into line with the state of New Jersey's policies and procedures and recommended by the city auditors. I will open up the public hearing on this fascinating ordinance, which seems to generate no controversy among us. It's in the room. Anyone online?
10.
With it?
10 hands.
Okay.
Shot up.
All right, I will make a motion to close the public comment period. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public comment period on this ordinance, please say aye.
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 All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, would someone make a motion, please?
So moved.
Did someone second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adopting on second reading ordinance number 12-2025, granting final approval? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And ordinance has been adopted. Next is the ordinance number 13-2025. It's an ordinance of the city of Lambertville authorizing a special emergency appropriation pursuant to NJSA 40:4-53 for the purposes of funding preparation of revised tax maps. So we talked about this last time. This is to update the tax maps, which have not been updated since 2007. It's a long time. We need our tax maps, and this funding through a special emergency allows us to raise the funds to pay for it over a period of 5 years.
And a lot has happened in Lambertville,
You betcha.
so we really need to have them updated.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Cindy's been wanting, been hoping for this moment for years.
For years, yes.
How many years is it? 2007 to 2018 years?
Yeah, a long time, and I've asked almost every year at budget time, can we do the tax? Please, can we do the tax? And we even implemented a fee, a tax map fee for subdivisions.
Right.
So, so they did that, I believe, in 2014. So seems like a natural pathway.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Good. Sorry it's taken so long. I'll open this up for public participation. Online. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to close the public comment period on this ordinance.
Second.
All in favor of closing the public comment period, please say aye.
Aye.
And unless there's any further comment, I would entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance.
So moved.
All in favor of adopting ordinance 13-2025 on second reading, granting final approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations, Cindy.
Thank you, everyone.
So much.
I won't anymore.
Ordinance number 14-2025, this ordinance of the city of Lambertville, and the county of Hunterdon would provide for various capital improvements of and for the city appropriating $1,100,000, therefore, and also authorizing the issuance of $1,045,000 in general bonds from the district finance, of the city finance to stand. So I said it last time, I think it's important when we borrow $1 million or when we're on the cusp of borrowing $1 million to just kind of run through why we're borrowing it, and I'm going to do that again. Let's take a couple of minutes. And then I also do want to just talk a little bit about debt service and kind of where we are, so everybody understands that as well. And kind of what our capital, what I see as our capital needs in the next couple of years, which all of us will just take a couple of minutes. So the ordinance seeks to fund some repairs at the police station in the amount of $8,000, including outside lighting. It also seeks to include painting of the headquarters last done about 15 years ago, and purchase body worn wood cameras which are required. It also seeks to purchase a new Ford 250 pickup truck for the DPW on the standard replacement. This particular replacement is would be replacing a vehicle from 2011, so a 14-year-old pickup truck. It seems about time for that. Also the recycling truck, which is from 2009, as you've probably seen out on the streets, it's got there are holes in the body, showing its signs of old age. It hasn't calmed down yet, so we'll continue to use it as a backup, which would be nice. And that is going to cost about $350,000. The pickup truck will cost about $46,000. We do have estimates obtained for all of these items, by the way. They're all on file if anybody wants to see them. Technology upgrades here, $75,000. These are from estimates generated in 2023. We would finally like to do what we need to do so everybody can hear us all the time here in the room. The next two are related to stormwater. These are requirements of the NJDEP Tier A permit. One is in the amount of $225,000. This year we are required to retrofit all of our storm drains, those that do not meet the current requirements. I think there's 275 of those. So this is a significant capital project that's required to be done by the end of this year. As is the requirement, actually, that may be next year, but we're going to do it this year. The requirement to completely map all of our stormwater systems is, deadline is approaching on December 31st of this year, $15,000 for that. We are actively working on that in the Department of Public Works, but we need our engineer to take what we have and put it into GIS so that it's all complete and ready for state approval. The last two things that this ordinance seeks to fund is some tree planting in the Senate Business District, stop grinding and tree planting in the amount of $40,000. And we have been allocated for FEMA what's called a 406 mitigation grant to put in floodgates here, automatically closing floodgates here at this building, which will protect it from excessive flooding damage. The bond amount of that is $250,000. 60% of that total cost will be reimbursed by FEMA. So that project has been obligated, and we're looking forward to getting that. That's been a couple of years in the works. And kind of given where the federal government is heading with FEMA, I'm glad the money is already in the bank for that, so to speak. So that's a good project. Just to touch base about our debt service. So I did ask the financial advisors to provide us with an outstanding debt service as of January 1st. We put this on the website. It's on the finance page on the website. And I did get a balance from the CFO this week. Our current balance in the reserve for debt service is $648,000. That's what we'll be heading into in 2026 with the debt service. and reserve, plus whatever we add to that this year with the potential sale of the farm market and Green Acres, the potential, $300,000 from Green Acres, from the Baldwin Park. So, the CFO assures me this is a very, we've got a good number here, and it's only gonna get better, this year as we continue to close out some of these other, we start to see some of these other revenues that could go into that. So, at this point, I would open this conversation up to the public for any questions or comments, they may have in regards to this, bond ordinance.
Keep moving this back. Good evening, John Henchek, I'm still living there. Regarding the floodgates, we had a presentation by engineers quite a while back in which the engineer said as long as the outflow from the canal into the area behind where the gates would be installed does not increase past a certain level, that it would not, it wouldn't work. And so we had a room full of people that were, we hadn't seen any flooding on the Delaware for 50-some years. And then all of a sudden in 17, 18 months, we had 3 major floods and the people were becoming undone. So at that point, I talked to Dave. Dave came up to me and I said, what are you doing? They already said it wouldn't work. And he said, what am I going to tell these people? And I asked him, we saw where he was coming from. We have people that have been injured here. They don't know what the cure is, but they have something in front of them. And we're not going to arbitrarily tell them it ain't going to work. He said, but if you can find something, get back to me, because part of the flood gate program is pumps that have to take the water from the outflow that goes into the area of where the canal spillway, and then has to pick it up and shoot it out. And the way the canal is engineered, it won't work. We also, but like I said, I fully understood where he was coming from. We have distraught people who've had their property destroyed, and you can't say an engineer said it won't work. You got to engineer it out and see that it won't work. And the Army Corps of Engineers reviewed it, and their answer was keep your flood insurance. And they put that in writing. But we have another issue here. We live at the bottom of the bathtub. I mean, what happens above us is going to hurt us down here. West Amwell is looking to put in, I think it's called the Village of something, on 179. That'll be a tremendous amount of impervious surface. The school, I don't know where their stormwater is coming from. Gonna go, excuse me, I do not know where the schools put the stormwater. If it goes either side, there's 2 swamps that come together. It still goes to the same spot, right out here. I believe we have to take a more of a regional approach and say, wait a minute, if you're gonna build up here in West Amwell and hurt us down here, you have a moral and a legal obligation for us all work together. So although I'd like to see the storm doors there, but it's also storm doors with a pump. And when Dave told me to look into it, I happened to contact someone actually in the Navy. And I said, you guys, and I ended up, they were very cooperative. I also told them, you know, I was in the Navy too, so that gave me a leverage, E2. So what they told me is that the amount of water that comes have to be, they said, we always use our pumps. You would have to have somebody trained and know how to use your pumps and then use them. And I say, so what, we can do that, you know. But now if we have West Amwell adding to the mix, and the area, as I mentioned before, which is diagonal to the school, which has been always hydrated soil, because there was historically there was an area up there that was a mill, and now they're putting that into the Swan. Our problems are not created here. We just in the catcher's mill of it. So can we get together and do a regional approach here? And then get a solution that will work, that we're all good neighbors and we work together, and perhaps, just perhaps, the water that comes out of West Elmo has to be caught on the way down, or other aspects of that. So that it never reaches us here. And part of our flooding, which I gave you folks put a lot of time and effort in, of our problem here was the deadfall created a dam where the Rock Creek, where Rocktown Maryville Road crosses the swamp. And it dammed up there because of deadfall. Oh, and by the way, those two little old ladies, they have a big walnut tree sitting on their wall that we built them. And they have no means to get it off, and it's a big black walnut that's been cut back a bit. And so it's gonna cause us problem again because we're downstream. So I want you to understand that I understand that as an elected official, sometimes you have to take action to satisfy the needs of people who are very concerned, even though you may have a feeling that the outcome is not going to go your way. You still got to do it because you owe it to the people that you do so. And so there's no criticism on my part. Actually, one of the few things we agreed upon. So I thank you very much for your time. And by the way, folks, I have to leave, but I would like you to know, because I do not have the name of a complaint to my insurance company, our house has been damaged from blasting. So is the house behind me. People are having their clocks blown off the wall, things like that. There is activity taking place without site plan review on Academy Hill. And more than welcome, we just paid $2,000 to get the plastic put down on our third floor, because it's all plaster, 300 years old, it's all off the top of our house. Again, good evening, thank you very much for your time.
Sure. John, could I ask just to sit for a minute so I can respond to that? Yeah, because I have a few things to say, if that's okay. Please have a seat for just 2 more minutes. I just want to emphasize that the floodgate project is specifically for this building. I know when you're talking about the report that was generated in 2008 with the floodgates at the end of the creek. What this project seeks to do is just to add floodgates outside of the doors of this building. So I'm just explaining, right? So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, and the second thing is, on Tuesday evening, the city hosted an event, a meeting here with Go Hunter and their sustainability. So we had people from all over the county, and we were talking about flooding issues. And I spoke about some of the work that we have done here. One of the last remaining component of the requirement of the MS4 Tier A permit is in the city will have to complete a watershed improvement plan by the end of 2027. And the state now requires, they've changed the requirements here. So every individual municipality in the state is required to generate a watershed improvement plan. And, a year and a half ago at the Watershed Institute conference, I challenged the commissioner, the DEP commissioner on the practicality of it. Because, our watershed plan is only as good as how clean we get the water and how quickly we get it through the city with it, keeping everybody safe, right? So one of the things that we talked about, and Michael Sorrow from the Institute was here at the meeting, and the Watershed Institute is now working with several communities in Mercer County to create a watershed stormwater plan. And so we talked about that, and we're gonna have to get West Amwell involved, and that is definitely coming, I can assure you, because we cannot continue to manage all of this on our own. But as I've said in the past, for my work in the last couple of years is to make sure that the city is as safe as I can make it, and as safe as we can make it in terms of managing water that comes through. The regional approach is definitely going to be something that we're going to have to talk about, because we cannot continue to bear the burden of hundreds of thousands of dollars in infrastructure costs and everything else without, getting assistance from the communities upstream. So I don't make promises that I can't keep, but I promise that we're going to be talking about this a lot more in the next year and a half.
Okay. Thank you.
Please, yeah, of course.
Paul Stevens, 39 Court. Well, it's good to hear, because I was pushing for that about 2 years ago. Anyway, in terms of the impact on the debt service, I thought, there might be more than just the file out there to go look at. And it would have been nice to know that it was there before right now. I guess my one question is, I haven't heard anything though, does that incorporate, any sort of out years spending plan, in terms of capital things? We have a lot to do in this town in terms of capital spending, and I was just wondering if that, I'll go out and look at the file, but it won't matter after tonight. But have you considered, as the CFO, put in some sort of spending plan out here, so we know how it grows or doesn't grow? Thank you.
Well, it's obviously gonna be, updated once the bond is approved, right? So, this is kind of where we are, and as we continue to bond, the outlook changes. I don't see us, when we look at our 5-year capital plan that we talked about, in the finance committee, this is really, I think, the big year. Next year, they said at the last meeting, we're taking a year off from road work. I don't see that there's any major capital expenditures that are on the horizon, other than some routine stuff, replacing vehicles for the police. We've done a tremendous amount of work in the last couple of years, whether it's the elevator at the library for, $300,000, or the painting, or all of these other major capital expenditures for DPW. We effectively are going to be coming up, I think, in the next couple of years on a borrowing profile that's going to be significantly less than the last 3 years.
Well, I don't see how that's possible if we're going to do everything we can to minimize the impact of flooding in town. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody on? Yes.
Dave Bird, 255 Brunswick Avenue, on the floodgates for this facility. All right, we installed floodgates in the facility. All right, after some major flooding in this building. All right, they were installed and used, I think, a number of times, or at least sometimes. So what are we doing differently?
Well, I think those ones, someone actually had to come and actually do that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, the floodgates that are being proposed, I saw them installed at Diamond Silver, so I saw they're fantastic. They are automatic once the water level hits. The other ones did not. Somebody had to come over here and activate.
So yeah, I think that's the principal benefit here. These gates are designed to, as the water fills into, it goes in, it pushes the gates right up. So there aren't them over at the Diamond Silver that we use as a model. We talked to the building owner over there. And they're not even mechanical. They're done by kind of gravity and the pressure of the water. And, we have had times here when the floodgates have been on the building and we forget to take them off, and then it's a hazard in terms of the exit. So these are self-regulating, and will act very quickly if there's a flash flood, right? So.
And how much is this?
Well, the total project costs $250,000, and the grant will cover 60% of that.
Okay, that's it. Okay, on both front and the.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just, when we put it on the front, I noticed that Diamond Silver, some of the handicap accessible, it does affect that, so we just want to make sure that it'll still keep us as accessible as
Yes.
possible.
Hey, John Town, 14 Hancock. I'm not a smart man. Many of you will agree with that, right? Thank you very much. At just over 8 pounds a gallon water, you guys had a flash flood, whether it's automatically raising or not, you got people stuck in this building. You get a pretty substantial flood. Are we doing anything to reinforce said buildings? Because if I put 10,000 pounds of force on the outside of that building without that wall being reinforced, so we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. It's nice, we're gonna cover up a door, but when the wall collapses, what the hell is it gonna do? Why are we gonna spend all that money for a building that shouldn't be put in a flood zone? Or if anything, we're gonna invest money in a flood zone building. What does the federal government recommend? Raise it up. Sounds like a lot better investment than a floodgate. It's gonna cost $260,000 with zero guarantee that it's gonna work. Or that the rest of the building won't collapse around it. That's making sense.
Is there anyone online? Okay. Make a motion to close the public comment period on this ordinance. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Are there any further questions or?
I have a question about the stormwater and the mapping the storm drains. Are we gonna use our technology that we had gotten the grant for to storm drains during this, or is that?
It's an independent activity. So the mapping is, the way the mapping is done, Lester knows a lot of it already, so he's got, you know, we printed maps and he's writing, you know, of the system as we map inlets and outfalls. And he's taking a red marker and, you know, doing arrows, that's how he knows this is going. The video camera, is for setting pipes.
Are we planning on doing this next year?
I would love to get that started this year. So we bought a trailer for it. There was a box that had to come in that had to be outfitted. So that's finally up and ready to go. We will start that. We've got to get the mapping done. And so, but we'll also start videoing the system, this summer.
Right, yeah, I would think that then, once we did the mapping, since we have the camera, the next step is to have an engineering firm review the data to put together, again, going to like when you're talking about 5 to 10 years, you know, a capital plan of what we're gonna do down the road. You know, okay, what are the projects that we need to fix the system, and when would we stage them, and how would that work? And probably in terms of planning, just to say about, you know, our buildings as well. You know, we've studied them a lot of times, but just in terms of, you know, what's our 5-year plan in terms of, you know, is there outstanding problem? But I would think that our facilities, as you put, and our stormwater facility would be our capital, like, improvement focus for, and develop kind of a plan, so we kind of know what we're thinking we're doing every year from the deficits that we determine are there.
Yep. Absolutely. So we'll do the mapping, and one of the initial assessments that will happen this year is as we go through the replacement of all of the retrofitting the storm drains. When each storm drain is being retrofitted, an assessment of the inlet will be made. At that time, it's very unwieldy for the crew to go out and pull the grates off of 575 and make assessments. Brittany has started to do that. You know, when she needs to clear out a catch basin or an inlet, you know, it off comes the grate, and she, you know, clears it out, and then she'll, you know, photograph and make some notes of work that might need to be done. You know, we're talking about 275 inlets that are going to get personalized attention this year when they're being retrofitted. So, you know, that will also provide us a basis of understanding what, you know, what shape those boxes and, you know, those inlets are. And then, you know, once we begin kind of, you know, videoing the system, we'll have a better sense. And it's going to take a while to video this.
Right.
We're talking about mild pipes.
Yeah, some of our issues are, you know, not just these inlets, but the system, you know, itself. We need, right, to uncover. And we may at some point sooner rather than later need to procure and put out like an RFP for an engineer who would do that. And maybe they could actually, through the RFP process, propose like a program for us, because, you know, hey, look, we can think of what it is, right? But, you know, we might as well go to, you know, ask professionals what, you know, what they would recommend and how that would be priced. You know, I think that would probably be best for us, since, you know, we, you know, I don't know that we're gonna think of it in ourselves, but seems a little more technical than, so just a thought.
Okay, any other comments? All right, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 14-2025 on second reading granting final approval? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that was unanimous, the motion carries. Here we have a resolution, resolution 117-2025, it's a resolution to amend resolution number 111-2025. Contract with Gilmore and Associates to fund the engineering for the following projects, so updating the tax maps not to exceed an amount of $43,910. Then as for outfall pipe mapping, the not to exceed contract amount of $9,500. And the storm drain inlet grate replacement program inclusive of design, permit, and inspection fees with a not to exceed amount of $18,700. So we did this after the bond ordinance because these projects are tied into the bond ordinance. So I want to see if anybody had any questions on this. These proposals that we've had and reviewed, and feel comfortable. I feel comfortable moving them forward if everybody else does. Yeah. You want to make the motion? I'll make the motion. All right, I'll second it. All right, so all in favor of adopting resolution number 117-2025, amending the contract with the city engineer to include updating tax maps, MS for outfall pipe mapping, and the engineering for the storm drain inlet grate replacement program, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it carries. Correspondence, do we have any correspondence? Yeah, correspondence, who's ready for this anymore? Board appointments, just two of note this evening, so, to the Parks and Recreation Commission, I'd like to appoint Jillian Roberts, to a regular position. There are two alternates, stay alternates in those positions. And on the planning board, I'd like to appoint Vincent Buell to the second alternate position. Any questions about these?
No.
Okay, we have a motion to confirm these nominations.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Project updates. So Lambertville after hours. Liz Patelli, I haven't fallen asleep yet. I got to get my notes. Some notes all over the place. Yeah, okay, nice, thanks. So welcome, Liz. We began a conversation about a program that the chamber was interested in sponsoring. This came out of this was sort of born after the success of the Locals Night and Shad Fest, and we've had some conversations. Councilman, I thank you for your time and your efforts moving this conversation forward with the chamber. We continue to have conversations since the last meeting. And what we came back with, or what the chamber came back with, was a proposal after a few conversations with myself and the council and the councilman to create kind of an after hours block party. And what the chamber is proposing, that this would be an event held on summer evenings, three in particular, July 11th, August 1st, and September 5th, from 5 to 9 p.m. This event would take place on Church Street between North Union and George Street. So it's a fairly short block. And it features some bistro seating, music, extended shopping hours, dining hours, children's activities, and opportunities for community connection. That's what's being proposed, and we've had some conversation. I had some conversation with the council members, and there would be a certain number of things that the city would request, and I'm just going to sort of mention those. You need to write it down. We'll send them off to you, and then we'll see if everybody's comfortable with that, or if there are further things that the city would like to talk about. So, a couple of things that we would ask the chamber to agree to do is to reimburse the city for the meter fees for that block during that period of time, to reimburse the city for any garbage and recycling fees, probably pretty minimal. It may just be one or two people, like in trash on a Saturday morning, depends on how much you generate. Then you contact all the businesses on the block in question. I believe that's already been done. from a conversation I had with Carolyn, that you would provide your insurance coverage for the event. And then lastly, city council, would review this, the first event would be on July 11th, and we would, have a conversation on July 17th at our council meeting, just to see how it went, talk about whether there are changes, whether we think it's successful, whether we think it should continue, or whether it was something that, doesn't move forward.
Mayor, forgot the necessary police department resources.
Oh, yes, and whatever there are in terms of police resources that might be needed. So those are all things that we would ask that the chamber take on as part of the responsibility of taking over one of the streets for a few hours on Friday evening. And wanted to check in with the council members at this point to see if how everybody feels about this as a plan, whether there are outstanding questions or other things that you want to consider adding. And then I'll offer my thoughts.
So I would just add one more thing. I know we're gonna notify the businesses, but we should also notify the residents that live there, because obviously they're not gonna be able to park, and there's not many, but we should let them know. I think it's a great idea. I really enjoyed it in April when we did it. My other request was a beer truck, which I guess didn't get on the list, maybe in the future.
Just go to Mitch.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it was great. I think the locals really liked it. Just me thinking, I would think that maybe a less busy night than Friday might be more beneficial, but I'm certainly willing to try this. I kind of thought maybe a Monday or Tuesday might be pretty neat, because that's gonna bring more people to the area, because Friday we already have people, but I'm on board. I'm interested in seeing how it works, and I just appreciate everything you and Carolyn and the remaining chamber people are doing a great job.
And I would say that these evenings coincide with the fireworks. Across the
Yeah,
river.
that's a
Yeah,
great idea.
that's sort of our original answer to the
Yeah,
fireworks.
I think it's a terrific idea. I think you guys know what people are kind of hungry for, given, your customer base. And, yeah, it's great to coincide with fireworks. It's because people are kind of kicking around fireworks nights, looking for something to do.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
it's
9, so it can be 12.
right. But yeah, so there's something to, do. And it's terrific. The chambers does great. So thank you.
Well, it was great working with the committee and with chambers, to get this off the ground. And yeah, thanks for wanting to do something like this. I think it's going to add a lot to number one, to a street. If you have a business on Church Street, sometimes it's a challenge to get people to walk down the street. I was at number 1 Church. I know what it's like being on the first street. But it's a great community event, and the chambers really honed the direction in the past few years to focus on what you're focusing on, which is great. So it's a great community event. Thanks for taking it on.
Council President?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm in agreement with moving this forward. We could sit around and kind of speculate what we think could go right or wrong, but the only way to know is to do something. And we have a fixed number of dates, so it's not like it's going to spiral out of control quickly. And if it does, we'll just cancel the next 2. You know what I mean? So I think it's good for us to support the chamber's efforts to try to increase exposure for their businesses.
Great, thanks. I feel the same way. I'm excited about it. I'm enthusiastic about it. I think that I always say there are streets, we can use them how we want, where we get to decide, right? And with a lot of thoughtful input and trust and responsibility and just that good natured block party thing that we all love so much, that I particularly love. Unfortunately, I will be out of the state, so I won't be there for the 11th, but I'll make the other 2. And just in terms of advising the residents, I think that we can do that. Some of those buildings are rental buildings, so I don't know that we would have, we could probably put flyers on doors, and maybe Lindsay or if we could help identify property owners or whatever. So that's a pretty straightforward, I think, thing that we could do, is a fairly small block.
Well, and I think if we put it in Lambertville Matters and paper it, and I don't know, we can check to see, I think we have a database for landlords, we might be able to
I
sort that.
wonder,
away to-
is there a way to do it by the parking permits there? The people that, I don't know.
Yeah,
That might be, just because I think people parking, that's really gonna be the
Good
primary concern, they're not
Yeah.
gonna go park in the spot, so.
Okay, so, are there any other thoughts before we move forward? Should we adopt this as a resolution or?
we, resolution, it is in the folder for everybody, and it really just mirrors this.
Yeah, so would it be best if I just read the resolution?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
so this would be resolution 118-2025. It's a resolution to authorize the MOU with the Greater Area Chamber of Commerce for landfill after hours. So just take 2 minutes or 3 minutes to read. Whereas the Greater Area Chamber of Commerce has requested approval for landfill after hours from the city of Lambertville on the following days: Friday, July 11th, August 1st, and September 5th. And whereas the request includes road closures, police services, garbage and recycling, and whereas the city of Lambertville is requesting reimbursement for lost meter revenue payments for garbage and recycling fees associated with the event and police coverage. And whereas a portion of Church Street will be closed from 5 to 9 on the first Friday beginning July and ending in September. Whereas the following areas will be closed to vehicular traffic on the dates previously specified: Church Street between North Union and George. Now therefore be resolved by the governing body of the city of Lambertville, yada, yada, yada. We are hereby authorized to execute the memorandum of understanding with the Greater Area Chamber of Commerce for the Lambertville after hours events with the following conditions. Chamber agrees to reimburse the city for meter fees and any necessary police department resources. Reimburse the city for garbage and recycling fees. Contact all businesses on the block. The chamber must provide insurance coverage for the event, and the city council will review on July 11th event at our July 17th council meeting, and reserves the right to modify or cancel the remaining scheduled events. That's the resolution read into the record. If anybody's comfortable making a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. This is great. Let's get underway and have some fun. Thank you so much, Liz.
The only parking lot that is off of that street is behind number 1 Church Street, in that little lot, so you're gonna have to make the people, it's part of the noticing. But, because that's, what, if they're in, they're in. Yeah.
I think we know who the landlord is to that building, so.
I don't know who it is now. Is it still the Orland family? Did they?
I don't
I don't know. I
think
think she sold it. I
Yeah.
think she sold it from the land. Well, there's probably a registration floating around.
it should be.
All right, let's keep the flow. Announcements, July 4th holiday, all city closed. Trash and recycling for Friday pickup scheduled for Monday, July what?
Oh, sorry,
July
7th, right?
7th.
7th.
Okay. The street sweeper will not run on July 4th. I'll also note that the construction code official is going out. The birth of the son is scheduled in early July. We are going to do our best to maintain a schedule in the construction office. Crystal is still out and will be out for the same 2-week period of time. So Sue Bacorn, I see you out there. Sue Bacorn and I will be managing the construction office as well as.
Oh, that's a 5-finger wave.
5-finger wave. So patience will be appreciated. And now we will open this up to the second and last public participation. Same rules apply.
Paul Stevens, 3940. Just a point of clarity, will now this draft redevelopment plan for the open park be available for the public? And so hopefully by tomorrow, since next week it's going to the planning board.
No, because it was a draft document. It will be.
Yeah.
You go under ordinances, it should be tomorrow. I'll send it tonight. They should post it tomorrow.
Well,
Yeah, I combined the ordinance with that, so it's one document.
that's fine. It just, like I said, planning board meetings,
Yep.
that's Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, it's in the agenda, Lindsay. So the agenda has already been posted for the planning board meeting with a link to the plan. So it's already available, even though it was a draft that had not been introduced here.
Thank you.
Jeff Tittle, 33 Walton Street. That was my first question. The second question is, talking about the redevelopment plan there. About the road improvements, I guess, that are gonna be, because we have to widen the driveway, bring it, when it becomes a street, you have to widen it, bring it to, I guess, code. Is there any concept of what that's gonna cost?
No, not yet. So, yeah, I don't know what that's gonna cost. We talked a little bit about it. It may not need to be done right away. We do have money in the site planning, bond for the purchase of the Clausen property that can be used for that. It certainly has been surveyed, yeah, so I don't know.
So my second point is, once you figure out, maybe there's some DOT grants, nonprofit, historic, and be looking into.
Right.
Could be pretty pricey.
Mhm.
Paul, I just checked, it is available right now, to click that, so go to the planning board calendar and then you get it in there.
Judy Gleason, 86 North Union Street. This is following up. I asked a question at the last meeting, or last month, I think, about that playground that was touted as a playground that would be available for kids in town while the playground is closed because of the dirt, because of the whatever. And I hear tonight that we still have a long way to go on that, and I still see the closed sign, and I know Crystal's out, and I know she does a good job for construction, but I know she doesn't inspect and stuff, so I'm just wondering, where's the progress on that, because nobody seems to know whether there's gonna be that playground open for kids, and it's the summer, and I don't know what we're doing about that.
I'm sorry, which playground are you talking about? Are you talking about the
Playground for the
church?
shed, yes.
At the church, well, that's private property, so,
No, I know, but you, excuse me for interrupting, go ahead and then I'll say.
no, please.
When people asked about that, when you said the other program was closed, you, Mayor, said, oh, there's gonna be this new playground though, that kids will be able to use at the church because they're building this playground.
Right.
So I didn't know that that was the town's view of what the playground access would be, but you said that would be the access.
I did.
And now I'm just wondering, because Copeville asked me, because I was concerned about the fact that there were no permits and nothing had been approved, but. So that's why I asked last month, and I'm just trying to follow up now and see if we know anything about what we're doing about approving those.
Yeah, so nothing's changed. So initially, and maybe I'll just clarify this. So initially, the school reached out to us before there was a known issue and said, we want to open this playground to the public. We want to have this be open to the public, right? That was before we knew that there was an issue with the zoning and with the construction. So when they offered it to the public, I then, on their behalf, offered it to the public. And this was before we knew that there was a problem there. So once the problem, became imminent, they decided that, for insurance reasons, that it was not a good idea to keep it open to the public. And I stated that as well. So it's a private park, but it was initially before the problem was, they were gonna open it to the public. So that's the timeline there. And they have not submitted an application to the zoning board. The next zoning board meeting is July 31st. Crystal is keeping an eye on email, and so am I, and I don't know what they're doing in terms of presenting something to the board.
The construction office already told them they needed to get permits. That was all done before they opened it up for their own kids who go to school there. I mean, that was all happening. The construction office knew, Crystal knew, the head construction guy was new, and I'm sorry to say, I don't know his name, but that was all out there, that we knew they needed permits, so.
So I think, Judy, once they said they were opening, that's when some neighbors asked about the permits, and that's when we learned that there were no permits issued. So, because I talked to Crystal that day, so before the park was open, she didn't even know that. So,
So it's different information than I've seen paperwork on, but okay.
well, no, I think the issue is that some of those neighboring properties did not realize that this was gonna be a park open to everyone, and they had some concerns about that too, as adjoining property owners. So that's why I think they may have decided not to open it to the public as of now.
So all of that discussion and all of those things are now off the table, nothing's gonna happen. Is that, do I understand what you just said?
I have no idea what's gonna happen. I haven't spoken to them about when they're going to put it in an application before the zoning board. I believe they need a variance request now because of the work that they've done. And so I don't know when that's happening. It's a private property and I can follow up specifically with them. They're operating it under the auspices of their own organization and that's it.
I'm happy to ask them tomorrow when I drop my son off for you, so I'll ask Mr. Lisa, yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Sorry, I'll make a motion to close the public comment period. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And at this point, unless there's any closing thoughts from the council members, I would ask the motion to adjourn. No move. All right, all seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for being here. All right, we are adjourned at
Bye-bye.
8:45. Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Council President.
Aye. Thank you.